Call this meeting to order, please.
I have no problem with it, I think they should, yes.
Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Moving properly second that we adopt the agenda. Are you ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion is approved. There's an attachment for the notice of the special call. Is there a motion to approve? Accept.
I make a motion to accept the attached letter of the special call board meeting.
Second.
Moving properly second to accept it. Are you ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion is approved. We're down to the proposed consent agenda. Is that you, Mr. Superintendent? Oh, before you go there, sir, may I do one something, please?
Yes, sir.
We're winding down. We'll, come Friday will be our last day, or Thursday will be my last day, of feeding the kids with the school bus, but Friday's actually the last day of feeding the kids for the summer program. It's been really good, but, Sherman Avenue, let me say, you all have done a tremendous job. And, to Mr. Bass and his bus drivers, you all have done an excellent job over the summer, where, Mr. Shealy has said that other duties assigned, they have done the other duties assigned. So with that, I'm gonna say that at Dana Road, I've met a lot of friends, and I'm gonna try to call them all out. I know I'm not supposed to call any names, but, because you're gonna forget somebody, but may I just say that to Sandy, Darlene, Jennifer, Ramona, Ruthie, Chris, Donna, Samantha, Carolyn, Lizzie, Deborah, Pam, Paula, Ashley, Kim, Terrence, Alberta, Amanda, Andrews, Molly, Mari, Katrina, Maxine, Linda, Sandra, Jamie, Patricia, Beth, Tracy, Betty, Gloria, Verna Thomas, and of course, James Betts. You all have been fantastic over at Dana Road. You all have worked me to death, and I'm glad Thursday is my last day, but I appreciate you all, and I love you to death. So with that, Mr. Superintendent, it's all yours.
All right. Well, what do you have under proposed consent?
We have the personnel, I guess we just need to, we have the personnel, there are some leaving and some,
And then
permission to give students bid for the tablets.
I'm
Is
not
there-
putting any.
Any,
I make a motion to accept the proposed consent agenda.
Second.
to move the proper second that we approve the, B1 and B2. Are you ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion is approved. Mr. Superintendent.
All right.
Item C.
Well, what you'll have before you, we're going to go through a PowerPoint presentation here. But what you also will have is a paper copy of that presentation so that you can see that at your seat. It is an excerpt from the actual guide. This is the entire district plan. This plan, if you approve it today, will be online today for the general public to see and have access to, in addition to this PowerPoint presentation. And then what this whole presentation today will be the district's plan, but inside the bound plan and on our website will be every school's plan in addition. And basically the difference between those two are logistical issues with where to come in the building, what to do, those type of things. So one of the disclaimers that I feel like we have to put out front is the fact that just to lay to rest, this board doesn't have the authority to not have school. So if anybody is under the presupposition that they can just choose never to operate and that's not within their scope. Now, the only reason last year we were able to cancel school and go to a full virtual environment where everyone hourly and every employee were paid like they were is because the governor had a declaration and the legislature passed specific laws that are related to that. So just to kind of take that off, I don't know if there's, if that's still out and about. I just want to kind of lay that to rest that this board can't. You have to have school. Now, you can choose to have school at a certain time, and what you'll find in this particular presentation is that that we will be beginning regular school on August the 2nd, 7th, So that is a school plan that will begin, but know that all plans are subject to change based on new state legislation, MDE policy changes, COVID information updates, and other availability of safety equipment. So this is a tremendously flexible plan, and it has been devised with a lot of input, and then it is the best solution, we believe, for our community. And you'll see in the presentation, can you cue that up on the Facebook Live?
If we put it on,
Share the screen there.
if we bring up the void docs, will they go up there?
Can you hear me, Wade? All right, well, I'm glad I've got a paper copy in front of you. So, looking at the first page of this, we have the beginning overview, and the document is intended to provide information and guidance for the reopening of our schools. And then our classes will begin on August the 7th. And then we have no changes at this point that have been made to the published 2021 calendar. Now, we do have days that are embedded within that. If for some reason we had to reduce days that are within that calendar, of course, that would come back for board approval for y'all to be able to determine any of those. At this point, we do not have any indication that there will be any delay in school start from any entities above us, from MDE or the governor. So, in the packet and what will be online is a letter from me to the community, and if you don't mind, I would like to read that. It says, I hope this message finds you safe and healthy. This document outlining guidelines for reopening schools this fall is a result of many hours, if I could put that in bold, of research and discussion. We have also considered ideas and concerns from parents, students, teachers, community in the building plan to best serve our students and keep our people safe. I am proud of the hard work our team has done to create these two options. And our two options are in-person instruction and distance learning for our students returning to school this fall. While this is a comprehensive plan, as possible at the time, we know that it will change and expand as the pandemic unfolds. The plan remains a work in progress, and we will be updated as protocols are finalized and updated public health recommendations become available. We are working diligently to navigate this ever-evolving situation and to provide solutions to the questions not yet answered. As always, we are committed to communicating updates as quickly as possible. Throughout the pandemic, each day has brought new information and data that influences our decisions. Despite the unrest and uncertainty and difficult nature of our task, we are encouraged by the fact that we are in this together as a district, as a community, and a city. Stay well. So one of the main feedbacks that we have is we sent a survey out to all of our parents. And at this point, we've had 5,241 of those parents have reported back on individual responses. The main choices that we have, and we presented this a couple times now, a couple months ago, we talked about having a virtual and in-face option, and then at the last board meeting, a regular scheduled board meeting, we did the same. So in that, the selection that the parents are choosing is I'm coming back 5 days a week with social distance, and we'll show some details on that, or I plan on educating my child with a distance learning option at home. And then you can see in this data file right here, you have of the 5,241 students that reported back, we have 2,620, which is 49.9% of our parents are choosing distance learning. The majority of our parents are choosing that. We do have an other category because some folks either chose to answer the question differently than it was asked, or they had a different, they didn't give us a clear direction on what they were doing. Some would say, well, I'm gonna see how it goes and come back, but that's a 5% there. And then the ones that are in-person instruction is 44.6%, which is 2,344 parents at this time, or students at this time. The other clarifying fact, and we openly admitted that our largest struggle for the social distancing is the bus ride. With that, we have encouraged all parents, where possible, to transport their own children. So you'll see a transportation sheet, and on the transportation sheet, of the people that are coming back for face-to-face instruction, 86 of them, which is 77.1%, are going to transport their children. 8.4% needs a morning ride only, and 5.5%, which is 84 students, need a morning only, and the afternoon only is 17.4%, which is 268. Talked to Mr. Bass. This gives us a good opportunity to have very few students on our routes, and we can distribute those to help social distance as
Question real quick.
needed. Sure.
So the way we asked the question, because you have 5,000 respondents on whether to come back, but riding the bus, is this only of individuals that did ride the bus? So
Yes.
Well, I did the survey. So the survey asked, are you gonna send your kid to school or are you gonna distant learn?
Right.
I said, I'm sending my kid to school. It automatically gave me
You
the
mean
next
bus.
question.
So this is
And
only
then the
of-
next question was, are you busing
So
or are
this is
you?
only the people that said they're coming
Yes.
back physically in
Yes.
person?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
It was the way it prompted.
that makes sense.
Yep. So the first thing you'll see, or the next thing you'll see in the presentation is our communications plan. We wanted to be real clean and clear and transparent as possible because we know that everybody wants to know as much information as possible, and we want to be transparent with that. So, our primary communication tool is our website. So anything you need, we'll have a link there. We encourage everybody to go to the www.vwsd.org or Google us, and you can find that website. You'll find the fall reopening plan. You'll have a YouTube channel that's located there. All information pertaining to the beginning of school will be located there. We do have two mechanisms of social media, and that is our Facebook page. And just for clarification purposes, all of us at this table, I believe, have a Facebook page that is a personal page that has nothing to do with the Vicksburg Warren School District site. All of the official communication from our district will go out on that site. Even though I have lots of friends and I love interacting, most of my personal information is all about my kids and where they're playing baseball, to keep photos of my parents. Now, I will share district information from the website, but that is not the primary communication tool. So if anyone wants to contact the district, they need to do that through the official Vicksburg Warren School District site, or we have a whole office staff up here that's ready to
Expound on that too, as I've watched, to watch the stirring and discussions, great discussions that I've seen on social media, is that I would encourage parents, if they want to have a discussion, it's a great forum to have a discussion.
Sure.
But I've also seen them ask questions as if they're asking the school and asking everybody, so they need to direct those to the
Sure.
individual school, either call them or go over there, contact them directly or through this, because there's nothing worse than, going out and talking about your bad marriage and expecting Facebook to solve it. Facebook's not gonna solve it. You need to go to the people that can answer your question and give you the quickest result.
Sure.
And just churning out there, just throwing a question out there, when you really have a legitimate question, needs to be directed most effectively to that. And also helps us know when we need, this is something we forgot to even mention or forgot to communicate. It's a point we need to communicate to everybody, we disperse it to everybody at one time effectively instead of the whole social media
Sure.
frenzy.
And that's a great point. Everybody, social media in and of itself is a wonderful tool for us to have a little world. But if you, to quote my dad, if you want the best information, go to where the information came from. So as we get good guidance and feedback on what we're doing, anything needs to be directed towards, if it's the individual school, obviously, best place to start is that school. So just as a caveat, I wanted to state that there is a Chad Shealy site, and Chad Shealy does not engage in any type of business-related activity, and that is Chad Shealy's personal site, and Chad Shealy's personal site has Chad Shealy's personal information. But if you want something about the district, we need to go to VWSD and get it through the appropriate channels. And then we have a fantastic office staff here that's willing to field any of your needs. So just make sure you're reaching out to a source that can get you good information there. Also, we have our Twitter, and that is out there in order for us to be able to put any of the information that we can as we get it. Call and text messages. One of the things I love about y'all as a board, you approved something that allows us to be incredibly transparent, and that's school status. And school status is our communication tool. It records every text we send out, so we can talk about how many times we've had communication. We can talk about the audio, because when people call in, it also records those and puts that record to text. So that becomes our primary mechanism of communication, so that we can make sure that everybody's doing what they need to, because I can check that. In addition to that, that the questions that come in are recorded there. And of course, we have email that are available that we can pump information out to every email that's valid and every text phone number that we have. So I beg our parents to make sure you go back out on Active Parent and make sure that that information is the best contact for you, because as we put this out, you'll be getting text. We want to make sure that it's going to the right phone number, because they will be going out in mass quantities. And then, of course, every student and staff member in our community, they have a VWSD.org email, and that information will be going out to them. And then the parents, we have Peach Jar, which is basically our district-wide communication letterhead tool that goes out. So those will be the communication efforts that we have. Very cleanly, again, we have 2 offerings. One of the things that you'll find in our plan, you're going to have a lot more descriptive execution of the district distance learning plan, because that's the one that's really new. We did not have as much detail in the in-person, other than we will be executing, the professionals will be executing in-person instruction, but we did include transitions and some of those things as far as screening, so that you can have more information. So you'll see those 2 options on this particular page. The thing about distance learning, students will begin school on August the 7th. Students that begin in person begin in August the 7th. Before you get into either one of those, just understand that all students will be served in accordance to their 504 plan or their IEP plan, regardless of the selection that they make. So I am a parent of a child with an IEP, and he will have an IEP that will be specific to his needs and his disability, that some may be executed through the blended environment, some may require other solutions. But just understand, in addition to the plan that we're talking about today, those individual needs will be in those documents, and we will, as a district, serve those students with that. So as a disclaimer, prior to jumping into the distance learning, I wanted to state that. So what we have, students will participate in distance learning via grade results, and that is our primary tool. That will be embedded within the classroom format that we already have, called Google Classroom. And Google Classroom, and a lot of folks will say, we're using Google Classroom as a format. Basically, Canvas and Google Classroom is a mechanism to which things can be placed on a shelf. And if I described it any differently, that's basically what it is. It's the mechanism through which the instruction occurs. So the assignments will still be going out, and the connections will be there. So everything will still be in that suite. But what we're doing is we're executing our virtual solution will be primarily with the product called Grade Results. K-8 students will be required to continue to work in iReady. That's another product, iReady, until we are released, or the state, and at this point our state has not requested a waiver from state testing, even though several have. If until that point, we are still responsible for making sure, I believe ethically, that we give all the students what they need in that same time frame and window to be prepared, because I would never want to harm any child from graduating or moving to advanced courses, or all the other elements that the testing kind of falls in place. So we will be benchmarking. The other important thing to understand, and our parents at home and those will be attending. The reason we put that in there because we didn't have a state test last year. So in not having a state test, it puts a kink in the wheel of our, y'all have already up to this point in our past have strategic plans from principals that deal with identifying needs based on where the data. Unfortunately, we don't have any data. So we will be benchmarking early so that we can establish those early placements where the kids are so that we can begin to work around those plans and what they need for Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. So that'll be a part of it. In addition to that, students will participate in the benchmarking, which is what I just described. And the thing we have with grade results, and part of the reason we selected it, it's approved by the State Department. So we don't have to worry about whether it's legitimate and kids will earn the credits they need for graduation. It just keeps us from all those conversations. In addition to that, we have to be, best case scenario, everybody comes back, nobody gets sick, not anybody, not a kid, not a parent, nobody. And then we get to move on with other people saying, hey, I feel safe, let's transition everybody. Perfect world, nobody's sick, everybody comes to school. But we have to prepare for the possibility if we have employees that become sick, we have to have an ability to utilize a particular tool that is not as reliant on adult input for the quality of that work. Meaning, if a teacher's responsible for all English 2 content and they've got to present, create all this, well, if they become ill, if they're no longer able to do that, then we have to have a mechanism for that to be in place. So in that, understand that grade results is a capsulated way to do that. Now, it has proven results. It's based on our standards. We are giving them our pacing guides, and they have them for the first 9 weeks. They'll have them for second, third, fourth. And to put it in context, it's not the first time y'all have heard me say that, nor it's the first time the community or my building principals. We are a standards reference education district, meaning that the standards drive our instruction. And what we do is we have evidence of mastery of those standards, and those are recorded in the grade book. That has not changed. Grade results is the same thing. It is a evidence of mastery of the same set of standards, whether they're in class or they're online. Our teachers will still be the teacher of all kids in the district, whether they are choosing to be at home or they're choosing to be in class, inside those classrooms. And I'll kind of talk through some of that as we go. But teachers, one of the things we'll have this year is the teachers will be trained, and all the aspects of grade results will have an adequate amount of time to do that. We know that we responded to an emergency situation last year and cut it on, and kids were progressing through that, and then we have those ready. The other things that are out there, certain classes may require Odyssey-ware, iReady, Nearpod. These are the other tools, and some of, like even in our pre-K situations, we're having augmented things that are being created by our C&I team that will be pushed out in that Google platform. So that's what you can expect from a distance learning.
Mr. Superintendent.
Sure.
I may be jumping ahead, and if I am, you can answer it later, but allow me to ask this. On the Google class, and I think Google class is the teacher that's standing in front of the class and teaching the class. Is that?
No,
Or is that grade
Google.
results?
No, that's Google Classroom is basically an online tool that allows us to connect, and it will severely under-describe the way the suite works. But in essence, it allows me to push out content to everybody in my class. It allows everybody to feedback to that content, access the content, revisit the content, but the content in and of itself is going to be based on the teacher. Now, inside the Google Suite, we have something called Google Meetings, and I am going to talk about that.
Which is the teacher.
That's correct. And what we are requiring this year, differently than we did last year, is at least once a week. We're recommending it be at the syllabus time or the weekly. And as Madeline Hunter, old educator here, as Madeline Hunter designed, you have anticipatory sets that go on before learning takes place. So establishing what we're going to learn, how we're going to learn those things, you'll be seeing those, and the kids can log on to and it's within their Google Classroom, but they can have a Google Meeting time, and that Google Meeting time will be a time where they get to either be on they can maybe at the individual teacher's desk on it, like we do when we have our board meeting, or it could be up on the screen where they're, in front of all their class, but there will be times for that. In addition to that, we will have some, because just like in a regular classroom, a teacher's responsible for the progression of a kid. And if a kid, let's say Brian, he decides he's gonna come into class and he's gonna lay his head down, in the classroom, the teacher's going to address whether he's participating or not. In addition to that, he's going to look at the data and see the progression. And if either one of those cases, the student's not where they need to be, then it is expected for that teacher to reach back out. And in lack of a better term, they're going to have teaching office hours, if you will, which we know inside an elementary classroom, it's easier to understand what stations mean. Because you could have 4 groups of kids, and they have a personal time with the teacher, and then they are at this station or that station or this station, and then they'll rotate. And so by the end of the period, everybody has time with the teacher. That's unlike what we're kind of talking about here with those hours. It'll occur during the regular time, but it'll be scheduled to the point where, and grade results in and of itself has a I need help button. And a person who is a certified Mississippi teacher will respond to those questions immediately. In addition to that, we're going to have our teachers. So technically, the folks that are doing the virtual have multiple opportunities to have multiple educators to help them.
So no longer when the teacher, when we had math at 9:15 and we were in the classroom, that's no longer
Not
there.
if you're distant learning, it wouldn't necessarily.
Well, yes, because that's one of the things we do recommend for the distance learning is that the same schedule that your kid has, whether they're at home or whether they're here, we expect that the kid's online and they're learning during that time frame. Now, what we have the opportunity to do here with communication about what a parent's responsibility, and that's kind of what these bullets are here for, is because I've got a lot of feedback on what is it I need to be doing to make sure my kid's supposed to do what they're supposed to do. So a lot of these bullets really address that. Fundamentally, as long as a parent is providing an uninterrupted 4-hour period of time where they can log on and do their work, that's about all they're required to do, because it's my personnel that's going to make sure that they're doing their work, that they're on task, that they're moving forward. So if you look at these bullets, you got students who begin the year via distance learning will participate through the Grade Results online platform. Now, and I'll answer this after, I'm going to get in front of my own points, but Grade Results is a rigorous program that takes place at home. Distance learning takes consistency and dedication from the student and parents. So we do recommend that daily regimen, just like the regular schedule they have, and you will be provided with that from your home school, and that's irrelevant to age band. The distant learning daily schedules are expected to mirror the in-person instruction. Students who participate in distance learning will be issued Chromebooks and will be able to use those at home. Additional distance learning resources can be found at the district curriculum website. These links are blue on this paper, but in the presentation, they will take you directly to those links. Distance learning expectations, whatever parent needs to know, we kind of put that in place so that parents can go directly to that and have some resources to help them. Students will be assigned to the classroom a content teacher who will support that distance learning. Teachers will have specific times set up to support the distance learning, and then grades will be earned based on the mastery level achieved in grade results. Teachers in each course may give additional graded assignments through that graded classroom, because one of the things the Google Classroom we can do is assign a project, and each kid contribute from their home to that project. We're trying to make everything be as authentic as possible to the regular classroom, but grade results will be that primary mechanism because it is an approved MDE, and y'all have approved it as a local board also, and it is aligned to our particular standards. The thing we did do for grade results in addition, we have a parent guide and a student guide link so that if there's any questions, we got some questions about what do I do if, so now that is there. You can click on that button and have the full span of what your options are within that. And then again, our professional development in our beginning of the school year will be intensive for our online formats. So, any questions on our online delivery before we move to in-person?
I don't know whether mine is necessarily delivery or not, but I guess I do have a question. So, kids will be, you know, you initially decide you're going to school or you're distant learning. Are we asking for, since benchmarks are getting moved up, are we asking for people to try and make, you know, like a 4-week commitment or any kind of commitment to stick to that one plan?
No, we really discussed that, but understanding that we understand this disease or virus, rather, is going to impact that greatly, because we may have a student who intends to come to school, wants to come to school, that is affected by this and now has to be home for 2 weeks
Right.
for whatever reason, right? And in that, we don't want any breach of education. And the way we've viewed this, and I think grade results is an amazing tool for us, probably moves it on forever in this aspect, is in the past, if a student came to school and something happened and they had to go home, they come back to school and they're handed a pile of papers and they say, go fill all this out on instruction you never got. And sometimes you would have teachers that might say, hey, come in during your break or after school or before school and kind of, you know, try to fill in those gaps. But we really didn't have a mechanism for initial instruction to occur, because if you miss the instruction, you miss the instruction.
Right.
Not with grade results. And now
Go ahead.
what we're doing, because it's the same standards and the evidence of mastery is the evidence of mastery. And if this standard is this standard, and you could do a teacher content project in the classroom that demonstrates mastery, or you can do a grade results demonstration of mastery, we're keeping it fluid. Now, do we understand that it's going to be a little more work on our staff? It is, but in the grand scheme of things, this is unprecedented. I hate to use that word because everybody hates to hear it. These are unprecedented times, and we want to make this as student-friendly as possible. And to maximize the instructional opportunities. The other thing that gives us the opportunity to do is, say you sat through a lecture and you didn't get it, and you are in person, now you have the option to go online and get another instructional opportunity on a specific group of standards.
Okay, that's my next question. So if you're a child that's doing in-person, face-to-face learning, are you just plugged up to a computer doing grade results in the classroom, or is the teacher actually?
Teachers teaching.
But
Yeah.
you are exposed to grade results and understand where you are in grade results in the classroom.
I expect it's going to be a blended environment
So
for that.
when you if you were to have to transition home because of an illness or whatever.
Sure,
Or decide you don't want to go anymore.
sure,
You want to do it from home.
Sure.
You would be able to pick up as if nothing happened.
sure. And that's the transition we want to make sure that's there. We want consistency to be in the grading in that. We want the standards to be aligned, and you'll find and I would venture to say we probably are more aligned than most of the districts I know from a standards reference perspective. But this is going to require that now in every state of every grade all along the way, because if we have a situation where a student says, "Oh, I want to come to school," and then something occurs, and the parents say, "No, we don't anymore." Or we say, no, we're going virtual, and then all of a sudden, everybody in their Sunday school class is talking about how awesome it is to be back in school, and then they want to change their mind. What we didn't want to do is lock them into, because they're coming to school anyway, so why would we create a practice that isn't flexible to the need? And quite frankly, if you're a parent, and I've heard, a plethora of solutions, this gives you the opportunity to do pretty much anything you need, because the instruction is going to be there. One of the questions we did have come up, which I think is really cute, and it was from one of our high school folks. So what if I'm a kid and I say I'm going to do grade results, and I do everything, and then I'm going to come up after I get my mastery, evidence of mastery, then I'm going to come hang out at the school and do nothing because I've already done it. If you show up for school, you're doing school work, period, all the way through. So you'll get a double dip if you choose to do that. So we didn't see that as a disadvantage from our standpoint anyway. Any other questions about virtual? Good questions.
I got an attendance question.
Uh,
Is that somewhere else in here?
Yeah, we're still waiting. There is some guidance on that. We're going to move forward with the way that we've handled grade results up to this point.
Well, let me expand on what I'm talking about.
Sure.
So I'm a parent, I'm sitting at home, and I've said I'm gonna keep my kids at home.
Mm-hmm.
That goes on by for 10 days, 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden I say, well, I've got a doctor's appointment in Jackson, so I'm gonna send my kid to school today. so I ain't gotta be here with them, right? So we become an effective babysitter for that day. Is that transition gonna hurt the child?
I don't see where the transition would hurt the child.
Yeah, I mean, so it becomes evidence that the staying home part of it is not as important.
But we would prefer they not come one day and go the next.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
How do we prevent the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday students?
Or nobody goes to school on Friday because they're going to the football games
Or
on
whatever.
Friday night.
Or however that works out. I mean, as long as the program is set up to where those transitions do not hurt the child,
Sure.
I know we'll work through it.
Well, and that's the requirement of the standards reference approach for the week. If you have a syllabus that establishes this is what we're learning, if you learn this particular standard on Wednesday, if you're there, you learn that standard. If you weren't there, you learn that standard. To me, this is a very clean way for us to fill in the gaps of those. Now, is this going to be our norm from now to the end of time? I sure hope not. I hope we get regular school and then we'll have individuals that sign up for this type of option to be more clean. But we just know during this time, we've got to be flexible for it to be, or we can act like we're not going to be, but we're going to have to be anyway, because there's going to be situations that are going to occur. But these choices, and the thing that I think, as we talk about the virtual, it's the same thing they do in the regular school day. I mean, if we didn't have virtual and this wasn't a COVID situation, you're going to have the same thing occur, for kids, except now we have a solution for when they're not there.
So, let me ask you another question. The other thing that I've heard kind of in the community, there's other schools in the area where students are, private schools that.
Sure.
Are we prepared to handle influx?
Yes.
If they decide to take this option? Because I can't see how a private school could offer a virtual option. It'd be very hard, expensive.
Sure.
Are we prepared to handle those children when they come, in case they want to come?
We're the Statue of Liberty.
Because we're here to help all.
We actually have had unique enrollment opportunity. We have a traditionally homeschool group that has contacted us, and they're like, well, can't we just enroll in the public schools and do this? I was like, yeah, you can. So that is definitely an option for us. And with us providing food, I let
Okay,
that,
well, before you get to that.
yeah, I let that out of the bag
Question
already.
on attendance, my question on attendance is, has MDE set a standard for how we're gonna calculate attendance with
No.
kids with distant learning?
No.
So, big question out there for all y'all that asked me this 6,000 times. Funding is based on attendance.
Is there any appetite
I am correct.
for anybody for ADM?
So, if we are not calculating attendance on these children who are distant learning, then what does that affect our funding?
Yes, we hope to have had that in hand today. We have not gotten guidance enough.
And that's
to-
not from us that we haven't gotten guidance. The
Oh,
guidance
that's
that might
correct.
come from MDE.
Or Mississippi High School School Board Association on those.
I can give you a longer explanation at some point that take too long to get into right now, but I
Yeah.
can give you.
Just,
Are they considering someone to remediate this? Because are we the only ones doing a virtual option?
no.
No, definitely not. That issue has come up on the ADA/membership, and, let me just say, the jury's still out on what may happen on that. And
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I could take it down some rabbit trails and just take two.
So
Too
we
much
have confidence
discussion.
that somehow we're gonna be taken care of. We're not gonna be left out. And if half of our kids.
Yeah, half our kids are distant learning, are we
I'm
gonna?
gonna learn half, lose half our money?
I just, maybe some of my comments would be better, just, since I don't want people to run with something that's
Yeah.
far-fetched.
Right.
I think it's better if you just kind of understand what the theories are for considering waivers for ADA, or not having waivers and making some relative determination based on all the schools. I kind of mentioned that briefly to the superintendent, but I can start going off on some.
Well, there's no reason to go off until we
Yeah,
have some
that's
direction.
right.
And
Correct.
what we're all
And-
saying is there is no direction.
And that's right, and the thing I would want you to understand right now is kind of everybody's in the same boat.
Right.
So it's not like you're falling farther behind.
Right.
From an ADA.
But there's no appetite to let us just be stuck with the bill even without any type of funding. There's some,
No.
they're working on a solution that will hopefully
Well,
remediate the problem.
again, my point about relativity, which I've said to the superintendent too, is keep in mind that ADA determines your MAP dollars, but that's all relative too, because if they can't take the enrollment at the ABC district of the school or the XYZ district across the state, it shouldn't have much effect on you or this district overall anyway, because really how are they gonna assess anybody when you got half the schools either doing non-traditional distance learning or hybrid type programs? And again, let's not,
Right.
I don't wanna get too far down that
No.
trail.
There-
And we will be back in session, January before some of that, because this year's fall snapshot won't really go into effect until next year.
Right.
And so there's a whole legislative session before you get to that point. There's a whole lot of time for a lot of things to be done. So,
Yep.
Well,
don't
I
get too
guess
far.
part of my comment is to also kind of cool your heels, which is what you're saying for us to do. Because we as a community have been educating pre-K kids without any funding.
None.
And doing that, and which we think is the right thing to do. We made that decision as a board to do that. And if 50% of our kids are online, and that's what's safe, and that's what our parents think are the right thing to do, I, as a board member, think this board will continue to do the right thing for the children in our district.
I don't disagree.
Yep. And again, when we get more clarity, I don't want to show all my cards right now, but one of the things that we do have is we are a district of innovation.
We do.
And we are in possession of some very nice waivers that we were, that will help us if we needed to use those. And right now, I'm relying on MDE. They have I talked to someone there who states that they're coming out with some guidance in that. Whether I agree with it or not, there's still, that guidance should be coming. So, and as it's forthcoming and when it gets here,
So.
Y'all will hear from me.
What you're also saying is we've had to make a lot of decisions based on the best information we had at the time we have received. We've got a lot, very
Some.
good guidance,
Mhm.
and we have to get ready for school. We can't wait
That's
till
right.
the first day, the last day before they come to make a decision. So everyone needs to understand that this is the best decisions we can make with the information we have. And
Sure.
children's safety and teacher safety and all of our staff safety is the paramount.
Sure.
In all these decisions.
Well, and quite frankly, the plan you see in front of you today, we had ready about 2 months ago with a few adjustments. We were waiting on some things that we're still waiting on, but we're at the point now we can't wait any longer. So, and that was the disclaimer up front, is that, this plan is subject to those changes. But we wanted to get it out to the parents. I know they wanted it 6 months ago, we're just, we're hamstrung by the information that we have at the time we have it. What should I know for considering in-person instruction? And what we've got, we are editing a few things. We're sorry for any inconvenience this may have, but in order for us to have a in-person opportunity to CDC requirements as much as we can, and will adhere to those, there are certain things we had to disband until further notice. We can add them back in at the time that the regulations change. One of those is students who are in-person instruction will now have to be dropped off at the drop-off time. We will not have staff available to monitor large groups of students, and in the past we were able to do that, but because we are screening everyone, we have to have full personnel on campus and everything's set up before we start receiving students. So we will not have any early drop-off. The AM drop-off for elementary school is at 7:25 a.m. The middle school drop-off is at 7:45 a.m. The high school drop-off is at 8:20 a.m. And then we will begin to take those students in. We will have adequate supervision for those times, and then we can begin our screening process, which I'll talk about in just a second.
Will we have breakfast service?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so 7:25, you have between 7:25 and 7:55 to drop your elementary school kid off, and breakfast service is there.
That is
Thank
correct.
you.
That is correct. So the other big change, and I asked Philip at the YMCA to wait until this moment, but we've been in contact for about a month now, trying to get plans there. We're not out offering any on-campus after school. So what we are doing specifically for the YMCA, that would be anyone that's zoned at the YMCA. We can do like we do for anything, any of the other daycare centers that are zoned for those schools. We'll, if we have a route that runs through there, I talked to Mr. Bass, and that won't be a problem now. They'll have to work out non-zoned schools as a solution at the Y. But, we have to have adequate time to get the building ready for the next day. And there is extensive cleaning that we are doing in addition to what we're normally had been doing, which, we hate it, but we felt that until we can get on the right side of this virus, this is a necessity. So those I know are going to be difficult for some of our parents, and we hate that. But if you're going to have an in-person clean building ready and adequate personnel to execute our screening, we're going to have to operate in those timeframes. Transportation. For students who will be participating in via in-person instruction, transportation will be provided at the beginning of the day and the end of the day in bus routes. And these routes may change, and the reason I say they may change is after a couple days, we see the amount of students that are actually going to arrive and actually going to be going. If we have one bus route that's can be adjusted to reduce number of students, or we're going to do that as best we can. Mr. Bass he's on top of it.
Parents need to understand, if you flip-flop, don't expect tomorrow the bus to come at your door.
Sure.
You need to be reasonable. People need to be reasonable and understand we're doing everything.
That's right. And there's going to have to be some pretty clean communication about this, and that'll be a part of the food also. And again, I openly make the recommendation, and we openly make the recommendation that everybody transport their own student due to, I've seen no guidelines in the history of anywhere, no district, nowhere that can social distance appropriately on a bus, even though we do have CDC guidelines in there. Just understand that there's no way to get on a bus and be 6 feet from anybody. That it is what it is. What we are doing is each bus driver will be provided with a mask and a face shield. And the only place we definitely need students wearing masks is on the bus. So we have a recommendation for a mandatory for our drivers and students while on the bus, unless there is an underlying medical condition that prevents it. We openly understand that there are special needs. There are things where there are adults and children that are incapable of doing that based on a medical condition or disability, and that would not obviously apply to them. But for everyone else, we felt that that's definitely one of the highest risk spots, so we wanted to have that in there. And then the routes, you can see we put that link in there, and again, this PowerPoint presentation will be available to everybody. And if you want to know where your transportation routes closer to the start of school, as that fluctuates, get out there and you can see it. Also, one of the things we're doing is we're doing our Clorox 360 electrostatic sprayer system, and it's better than a gravity-fed sprayer. And what it does is it positively charges the ions, and the mist is at a certain particle size that it is charged, and it goes underneath, around, inside, everything.
You're fogging the room.
So it's yes, and that's the service that we're providing, and not district-wide. We're doing that weekly, and that is an additional to what our previous services were for cleaning.
So our janitorial services went up?
No,
No?
they did not.
Wow.
I know, right? We can discuss that later. So face masks, students who opt for on-campus learning are strongly encouraged to wear face coverings and masks when possible, especially inside any type of non-social distance environment. There could very well be opportunities where students on a field that are 10, 12 feet from anyone else would not necessarily need that in an athletic situation, but if you're teaching somebody how to read and you're within close proximity, then they would definitely need to have that. What we're doing as a district, or you're doing as a district, is you're providing 5 washable cloth masks to every kid. So you got 5 of them, wash them weekly. That's a whole week's worth of masks that we can have a clean mask daily for anybody that comes. And then we will also issue those to our 5 of those cloth masks to our employees. And in addition to that, we're giving face shields to all of our employees. So everybody that works for the district will have a plastic shield. One of the conversations that we've had is how, how do you deal with hand over hand speech instruction when you can't see your mouth or you can't. So trying to find the best way to deal with those situations. We're trying to be as cautious and as flexible as we can. And then any individual school plans for locations of those or processes, those will be in the individual schools. Daily wellness screenings. Now, this is all over the place from national. I was telling Coach prior to the meeting, like in Nashville, the way that CDC requires the screenings is if it is possible, this should be the case. And Nashville is interpreting that as it takes too long to get in, we can't have school, we're not screening our kids. It is the parents' responsibility to do that. That's not what we're doing. In our buildings, every single human being, whether they are employees or whether they're children, will be screened daily. We have touch-free temperature devices that will be there. And how that mechanism rolls out is in the individual school plan. Some of them are doing it multiple doors. They're doing their bus riders and their car riders and because the specifics of the buildings, logistics are going to be there. We had those details that are going to be in the individual school plans. But and what we're doing is saying on that wellness screen, the indicator in every medical profession. If you go to the hospital today, this is what they're going to do. They're going to take that. They're going to put it at your forehead. They're going to say, "Do you have 100.4?" And if you do, that is what is considered temperature. So that will take place. In addition to that, and I'll kind of describe the process of what will happen, and I may overlap that as I move through the presentation, but we have a mandatory quarantine room at every building. That quarantine room will have a air purifier located in it. It will be mandatory masks inside that room. In addition, there will be mandatory social distances, no questions asked. And if you come in with 100.4 in the morning, you report directly to that room. You go to that room, you're allowed to wait, and this is under our nurses' recommendation, wait 10 minutes, give an oral thermometer measurement, because technically kids may be just hot because it's hot outside. You want to establish whether there is a legitimate temperature. Once that temperature is taken and it is a legitimate temperature, that student will have to, if they have their own transportation, get in the car, go home. And then if they do not, they will be calling their parent, and their parent will have to come pick them up.
Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, sir.
On what you'd given us earlier, something that the CDC had recommended is that, I know you just mentioned about the multiple sites.
Yes, sir.
And they recommended that, you had one site to come in, because that way you could control everything. I guess all schools are not equal.
Sure. But if you have 300 kids, that's easy to do. But if you got like 1,300 and you needed to because basically they want to have in the contact, they want to know where you've been, and that narrows down exposure as part of that. So most of our schools only have one.
In our larger schools, like a high school, are they gonna have some way of marking them so you know that I've checked?
Well, if you're in the building, you're temperature free.
Okay, so they're not, they're gonna block the door, you can't come to the building and you go through this process.
Yes.
Okay.
One other thing is that, also read in there where the visitors and parents, I saw most schools were not allowing visitors to come in, the parents to come to the office. Then I saw some schools that will we be able to kind of do a blanket?
Yeah,
everybody? Okay.
what you've got now in that combed version is the updated version. We are not allowing any visitors.
Okay.
Now, I say that, but if there is if the health department shows up and says, I've got to come in, or they have a court order or whatever, and we are required to let somebody in the building, we actually have, a requirement for them too. But we are not doing any, I hate it. I hate that we're not doing it. Everybody wants to send their baby off on first day. Everybody wants to eat lunch with them. We love having grandparents and veterans, but until this is settled, we will be doing none of those. So we will not have any visitors in the building. unless we absolutely have to, which means we're going to be doing a lot of virtual solutions for even IEPs, for other parent-type meetings. Now, we're going to still try our dead level best to have virtual award ceremonies and all the things that we enjoy doing, but we're just going to have to come up with a different way to do it other than people being on campus. And then, you know, that just is what it is. So we're doing that. We will have a screening that happens daily. If during the day a student has any type of condition that appears to be a COVID-related symptom, they will be sent to that quarantine room, and the same process will follow from that.
And if you tempt one time, you know, when you tempt, we determine you have a fever, then at that point you have to go home, and it's 2 to 14 days before you can come back to school.
That you have to be fever-free to return. So ultimately, you'll never come back through the door running a fever. And then our CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, is on that next page, and it recommends that you go and get tested. You need to find out if you have these symptoms. It's prudent for you to self-quarantine and for you to go to a doctor and find out if you've got COVID. That is what is in the CDC requirements for this particular COVID-19. Regardless of what MDE, regardless of anybody, that is the recommendation of the health professional. So again, you won't come through our doors unless you are symptom-free and you have no fever, or you have a negative COVID test. So
100.4, make sure. 100.4 on fever.
100, yes, 100.4 or above,
So if you come today.
that is a fever.
And flip the switch and have fever, and tomorrow you don't have fever, you technically can come back.
Correct.
Go ahead.
With Sue, on our room that we have, for when one kid tests spot, how many, do we just have one room in each building? And what's the capacity of the room?
Yeah, it's going to be social distance. So if you will have an overflow if needed. They do have alternate places, but we're going to designate one as the quarantine room. You know, and if we're filling up with 50 and 60, that's a whole different conversation. You know, and the thing to consider, and I promise you this, we have had. He's probably made 10 grand off this one conversation. I'm just kidding, not that much. But we've tried our best to stay within what we can do, what we need to do, and then the kickers are the amount of symptoms that you can't test with a particular metric. And that's what makes this kind of tricky. And then you could potentially have a child that runs a fever that has nothing to do with COVID. So you have to be cognizant that, you know, I could have a knee surgery and be taking antibiotics and be running a 2-week fever and have no symptoms of
Are we gonna
COVID.
have something to send home with this child, as a doctor, to say that you tested positive, and here are the CDC guidelines? We're not requiring you to do this, but here are the CDC guidelines. If you have one of these symptoms, you might consider doing.
That's what this does right here.
So we're gonna provide that to them?
Every time they show hot,
I mean.
When we send them home with the parent, are we gonna,
right.
Yeah, we're
I'm
gonna
sorry.
send them home.
That's what this is.
This is what this whole thing is to let them know, this is our new,
Right.
this is our.
Process
but
of
we're not
procedure.
physically
Yeah, but
sending them home with a note that says, Mama, this is what you need to
Just
do.
like you give this out,
Right.
just like the handbook every year, because
This is the
this has
handbook.
never happened, right? We have a handbook they sign, and 6 months in, they wonder why their kid got kicked out of the history club because they got expelled.
Sure.
So my point is, I think that, you know, not that we're requiring it, but, you know, these are, would it be possible to have a little?
Well, and keep in mind now, there's constant education. Everybody's gonna know all of this, because this isn't the only time they're gonna get it. We have education that's gonna occur daily. I mean, you have CDC requirements. We got videos that have been put in place. This will be, you know, there's nobody gonna be in the dark about what the
So
requirements
the
are for
CDC
that.
requirements is if you pop with one of these symptoms or with that fever, you probably, or existing symptoms, you probably prove the person would go get tested.
Correct.
We can't require that as a district to let you return, but we want parents to take responsibility to prove things. Just like we're expecting them, which we know in the past is not always the case, we know that children have been sent to school sick. We are in different times. It's a
Sure.
different world. This is a different world we live in. We need parents to step up and take the responsibility, the precautions, and we have a way for your child to get educated at home if they're sick for a day or two, until you can ensure that your child is safe to come back if your child was in person.
Yep,
I have a question.
go ahead.
All right, I have a child who drives, and
Uh-huh.
you said if, you decide that you've got a temperature and and you're being sent home, you can get in your car and you can drive home. Are you gonna make a phone call?
Yes.
But is somebody gonna make a phone call to
Yes.
the parent and say, we sent your child?
That's
home"?
what happens inside, and it's in the plan. It says that the home will be contacted
Thank
out of that, quarantine room. Yeah, so, yeah, we're not gonna be, yeah, I got you. Yes, the parents will be notified in that.
I
And
like to check it twice, because I can see all the high school kids in the car with the heat on.
Heater on.
Gotta get 105, I gotta, get away, I gotta get tested quick.
Yeah, I gotta run home real quick.
Yeah.
That's funny. So again, it is, and as long, and the reason we cited the CDC, because I mean, as early as last week, we watched the vice president's feed, and he alluded to the fact that CDC was coming out in subsequent week with lessened restrictions. So just understand whatever the restrictions of the CDC are, whether they increase or decrease, or if we have, the governor says, this is our county, and they did with several other counties to say, now you have mandatory mask require, I mean,
So what
Ours
is the
starts
mandatory
Saturday.
mask
We're gonna
requirement
fluctuate.
for spaces that the mayor just enacted?
Ours starts Saturday,
So what-
Mr. Attorney,
but only till, ours only runs till the, 3rd of August, I
Yeah,
think is
3
what I
weeks.
saw.
I am not aware of any authority, and I did speak with the guru of, this afternoon about that very issue. I'm not aware of any authority that would allow, a county or city, you're an elected body that has the jurisdiction over the schools. You've got the authority to control your school building. No other entity, unless there's a governor's declaration of state of emergency. I did bat that off our good friend,
Jim Key.
He agreed wholeheartedly that, there's no, we want to cooperate with the county and city, and I think we're all saying the same thing. Masks need to be either mandated or recommended to the extent possible, but, I don't think the city or the county, the short answer, city or county can't make y'all do with you're in charge of your own school buildings. You're the authorities elected to handle that.
And
I'm not
The
saying.
mandate says public building,
Please
should we not
don't-
consider a
yeah,
public building?
The public needs to be aware, we're not trying to thumb our nose.
Right.
At that.
And I think we've all been in contact with them. A lot of us have had conversations with them, and we're trying to make sure that we're all on the same page. But I'm just concerned that, I want to make sure that who has jurisdiction?
You've got jurisdiction over your school buildings. Y'all, you are the authority for all.
If they decide to start finding people that in a restaurant that's not wearing a mask, we're not gonna have the city police show up at a school and try to start finding people.
No, the governor is the one that can supersede anything we do.
yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
So, the daily wellness screenings, if you look, this symptoms, these, and I could have given you about 40,000 pages of information on COVID, but honestly, I probably, in my lifetime, I've never known another virus that everybody is an expert on, because of the amount of information that's out there. So, but what we do have are this bulleted item. So what we would expect is anyone who would come back would be free of these symptoms and have less than a 100.4 temperature to return on site, or a negative COVID test. On-campus screenings, this is what it looks like. Temperatures will be taken, which I've described for you. That's the narrative of going to the quarantine room. And then once you're in there, you will be sent home. Students, that's exactly what I just said. So that's that in writing. Instead of me rewriting that again, right?
Once you test it a second time, you go to the room first.
And then we give you a 10-minute,
Cool down.
and then we give you that's correct. And we do have sleeves that are provided, and I mean, so, the Nurse Nash has been very involved with the whole PPE process, and we have other things that we're providing based on, there was some oxygen metric, something that they have available with the nurses. And so it's deeper than even what we're talking about. But the thing to be very clear about is we're not recreating the schools to be hospital rooms. We're not recreating the schools to be doctor's offices. We are not testing or diagnosing anybody with COVID. That is the responsibility of the parents. So in essence, we're looking at the symptoms, and because we have an epidemic at the point where it is a pandemic, y'all are, or I hope that when you approve this, it's given extra standard to state that you got to be symptom-free, temperature below 100.4 to be able to return. And we know a lot of other symptoms that are equated with that, but if any of those become visible during the day, obviously that's going to get you a trip to the quarantine room, and then we'll follow the same mechanism. So our enhanced cleaning measures, and be honest with you, when you said this is going to cost more, ABM, great partner, lamented the fact that we, out of their 30 school clients, were the only one who had a system in place in their current contract that allowed for these cleanings to take place during an infectious disease. And if y'all are aware, about 2 years ago, we got hit pretty hard with the flu epidemic. So what we did is we put processes in place on this bid when it went out to allow for the infectious disease cleaning to take place.
Oh,
I know, right? So our
good
current,
job, whoever put that in.
I know, right?
Oh, wow.
So our current contract covers all the daily cleanings, all the spot cleanings, the enhanced touch. They're going to be going around. So every day, every classroom will have the surfaces will be disinfected and cleaned, the high touch areas, all the doorknobs, all the handles, all the sinks, all those things. In addition to that, we're providing our staff with the ability to do that, because we know that there's going to be something that will happen, and then they can walk over there and squirt it and clean it as needed. And then there are other solutions because they're different than at elementary than the high school, and I hate to kind of go through all of those scenarios, but there are opportunities for us to have individual cleaning items there as kids need it.
Hand sanitizer at the door, in the bathroom.
More than you can imagine. We're not, upon entry, and then we have the no-touch dispensers that will be placed at the high-frequency areas. So if you're going to the library, I would say all of our, I think all of our plans, everybody's eating in the classroom, but some schools are small enough that the classroom can be delivered to. Some may require scheduled time where they go grab and go and then go back. But in each one of those areas, at the high frequency spots, at the library, whatever.
I know this may be trivial in the big picture of things, but we're spending a lot of money on these new facilities. And I have seen in the past when we go to put a new soap dispenser out or this out, we just bolt it to the wall, and 2 weeks later we built another one next to it. So are these dispensers freestanding?
Yeah, they're freestanding.
Not going to damage the new finish or anything we've installed in these buildings? We're taking that into consideration when we stick one up, that we're not going to have holes in the new tile and
Sure.
that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
So as PPEs become available, we had and I hate to name a brand in here because it may not be the brand that we select in case we have to get another one, but we had an Angel, something, I don't know. Anyway, it's an air purification deal, and in close proximity, that's one of the things that we're adding to every one of the quarantine rooms too. So that's above and beyond normal. And honestly, again, whether some folks would like to make indictments, and some folks would like to have strong opinions, and that's fine. But understand that everybody's got a choice to make here. And I am a superintendent with 2 children, one with a severely disabled child who could potentially be very affected by this. He stayed in ICU for multiple days, several weeks with lung issues. So I promise there's probably not another parent taking this more serious than Chad Shealy. But understand that anything that we've been able to find that will reduce risk of contracting this virus, we are trying to put those mechanisms in place in the gauge of understanding that there is a required school start. So that's one of the reasons we got the option to stay home. We're not cool with what's happening up there, and until it settles down, I'm going to educate my kid at home. However, if you choose to bring your child to our campus, like Mason Shealy and Rig Shealy will be attending, then I want it to be as safe as possible to reduce the amount of risk. And all of those enhanced cleaning measures are in place to do that.
In our room that we take our kids that we're gonna put them in that test, who's gonna be in charge of that room?
Each plan has someone that's assigned to that
Will they
room.
have
In
any
addition,
medical?
sir?
Will they have any medical?
Some will, some won't, because what we have certain nurses, and they rotate around to certain
Okay.
buildings. So on a day, they may be at Bomar, there may be a different day where they come here. You know, when we talked about this, and we talked about who doesn't need, you know, do we need an individual? No, everybody needs to be trained. So we're training every human that because this is gonna take an army of people being conscientious about this.
So what do we?
But we're not the doctors, we're
Nope.
not the diagnosing.
We're not diagnosing anybody. Mm-mm.
That's
So-
not our job.
Understanding that we have been given indication that state funding is gonna be less. That's what our budget was based on.
Well, we don't have a budget at this point, because one, that Bubba worked so hard on got
You
vetoed.
mentioned a lot of things that we haven't paid for in the past
That's correct.
that are additional costs, even though we got the extra cleaning.
Sure.
It's.
It's-
But, so.
It's around $250,000 right now, in
Is there
addition.
additional funding or avenues we're using to pay for that, or we're having to eat that cost right now?
CARES money.
CARES money?
Well, most of the CARES money's gone to digital learning, so there isn't a whole lot of PPE money. I will say that our local, John Elfer helped, you know, they contributed a bunch of masks to help offset this, but what we are doing, both in budget on PPEs and expenditures for food transportation, for any of the things that are in addition to our normal budget, we're keeping them in a jar so that we can establish that they're different, even our employee cost. Because and when I get there's even additional costs that we could potentially incur that
So what
isn't coming from anywhere other than y'all's
What I'm
pockets.
trying to get the public to understand is that, you know, we have constraints, just as families that are impacted by this right now without jobs or affected, their revenues affected, we're affected as well. But we're going above and beyond to make sure, to do everything possible to make sure children are safe.
Absolutely.
And there's a cost.
Sure.
You know, they need to understand that as well.
I'll tell you this, there won't be another I may be wrong, other than the hospital, there won't be another public building in Vicksburg or Warren County that will be more protected than the schools. All you gotta do is go visit any of them. So just understand that the measures that we're putting in place, last time I went to some of the public venues that we get to shop in or operate in, and nobody scanned my head when I walked through. So when you talk about the amount of precaution we're using, it's a lot better than some of the restaurants in our town, for sure. So as you talk about what our requirements are, they are strict, and we are making sure, I don't mean that at your restaurant. I should have used some at the Dragonfly, how about that? So when you're talking about the amount of attention this is gonna be more screening, more precaution, because these are our greatest possessions. I mean, I'll be honest with you, the two kids that I'm gonna be bringing to this district mean more to me than any of you. And y'all are my 5 bosses. I'm just telling you, I get it. I'm a dad, I'm a superintendent. We understand that there are things we're required, but inside those mechanisms, I want this to be the safest opportunity where kids can learn, not just for my kids, but for my adults. I mean, I want my staff to be safe. I don't want to put anybody in any undue danger. And you know, and I didn't lead with this, but I will say this. You know, this is an epidemic that everybody's dealing with. You know, I told Sims when I was talking to him, you know, when you got a law enforcement, you knew there was probably an opportunity somewhere between here and now that you'd get shot at. You knew that going into it, right? If you're going to be in the medical profession, you know that there's probably going to be a strong possibility that you're going to be in front of somebody that's infected with something. And I know for a fact, nowhere in superintendent school did they tell me that this was going to be what I was going to be doing. Nowhere in any of our teachers' repertoire did this is what they signed up for, but neither did you, Sally. You didn't sign up for this as a restaurant owner. Briggs sure didn't sign up for it as an attorney, or any of the other workplaces that we have, and we're under this thing together, and we're trying our dead level best to create, the safest environment for our most precious people, especially in my household. And I love my wife, but my kids, it's just different. I should have stayed shut on that. Sorry, Shannon.
Stop.
So anyway, that's the reason we have these. Nobody requires us to do any of this. There is no recommendation that says that you need a positively charged particle distribution way to cleanse your building once a week and spot check and clean high frequency areas, but we're doing it. And again, that's in our buses. That's in addition to our classrooms. So we're and our office spaces for our staff members. Part of that also is the sanitation that I mentioned. That other stuff, other cleaning supplies and PPEs will be provided. And then the details are going to be in the individual plans, and they're in the big spiral. And for the parents that are out there who want to know what's happening with your school, as soon as this is approved, they're going to be out there, bang, this is going to be available. You're going to have a link to the big one that is at the district, but the individual school plans will be on your individual school sites. And the details will be there. And if you have any other additional questions as it relates to a particular school, make sure you reach out to the school. So anyway, the quarantine room, we talked about that. PPEs will be provided for that room. And then in addition, there'll be a purification system for the air in that particular room.
Chad,
Sir,
since you said that word again.
Purification?
Quarantine room. I want to circle back around to something Brian brought up. I'm just sitting there kind of thinking, wheels are spinning. So you call me, your kid's sick, come get your kid. I pick up the phone, Mom, I can't leave work, will you go get my kid? I didn't say what, he's just sick, right? So grandma gets there, picks the child up, takes him to McDonald's or whatever. All right, could we have just a simple sheet of paper that you sign out your kid, and on that piece of paper it says he was measured this, he was, take these precautions? Just to circle back around to what you
Brian
said.
would say.
At least somebody that's taking that child out of that school has signed something.
they knew that they had COVID
We have a
separate
separate sign-out book.
That's
So
what I'm
the
getting.
sign-out book
Something-
that, is I have a dentist appointment is one sign-out book. But the red one with the big red letters that says potential illness
Yeah.
or something.
Well, and
Or
that
why
comes
you're
back to our
signing that
contact tracking also, so.
I mean,
And that way we're signing that kid out in a separate
Sure.
book than the one that has an
You're
eyeball
gonna
appointment.
have a
that has-
grandmother, you're gonna have
Sure.
an older
that's a
sister,
good
you're gonna
idea.
have somebody picking that child up that has no idea why they're picking the kid up.
Yep.
Right.
And, they can't come in the school.
Griggs is looking, he's got an
And so,
eyeball.
Go.
I can tell.
what's wrong?
He's thinking.
Well, she has to be on the list, right?
Well,
She has to be
go
on
ahead and
the
let him
list.
finish his point, then I'll tell you what I was thinking of.
Well, my point is that we need to know, we need the person that's picking up the hot child
Right.
to know that the child is hot in some way. I don't know how it happens, whatever that looks like, the red book,
Right.
whatever it is. They need to know not to take that kid that's potentially infected off to the mall to go something.
Yeah, I agree.
My thought was actually more related to if they're coming in to sign a book, that parent or grandparent, first of all, you gotta.
They're on the contact
have an
list.
expectation that there's a chance they got it too, because they're with that child.
Sure.
anyway. So you wanna take extra precautions around that person.
So that, to me,
And the
that
second
sign-out,
thing is that sign-out book, that needs to be.
At the curb.
There needs to be where it's far away, you don't want a community pen if you can avoid it.
Well,
You
what I-
want highly sanitized area that's.
I would recommend is a sign out, single piece of paper for each of these individuals, because they can be signed and put somewhere, but never have, they shouldn't be signed in the book. Because the book's a common thing that everybody's touching, does that make sense?
Yeah, there's no evidence that it's contracted on paper or anything. That's okay too.
Well, we're not gonna have any kids sick, so this isn't gonna be a problem.
Oh, yes.
But in the event that there are, we do need to
Right.
take some
No,
kind of
that's a good
precaution.
idea.
And just a caveat on that is, as the attorney had just mentioned, is that we got to make sure that grandma can pick up little Johnny.
Oh, sure.
Well, that has to be-
Yeah, that's a
If I
part
can't
of
pick her up, him or her up, because I'm at work, then
They gotta be on the sign out.
you gotta be on the sign.
Yep, we check that on everybody. All right, employee mask, the use of masks, facial coverings will be governed by the Mississippi Department of Health and Order, if it's directed by Governor Reeves, but the district will provide those masks, gloves, and face shields for all employees. And we will recommend those, strongly encourage those, all people, to wear those, specifically in the times where they are, unable to social distance. Student masks or other facial coverings are required by the students while riding the bus, and they may be required for extracurricular activities. Everyone is strongly encouraged to wear those when not social distancing. Now, understanding that the requirement also is limited to those that don't have an underlying medical condition that would not allow them.
All our employees are mandatory.
No,
Which ones are not mandatory?
all of them are not mandatory at this point. Now, if the board decides it's mandatory under,
What
what's-
about teachers?
Oh,
correct,
Educate, are they mandatory?
no,
It is strongly,
strongly encouraged.
So what, now, I'm getting to a question now. My child is in Coach Stevens' class. My child has a mask. Coach Stevens does not have a medical thing, he just don't wanna wear a mask.
So I think this
Now,
goes
what the
back to,
situation is with that?
I think this goes back to parents understanding that this is the environment we have to operate in. If you're comfortable with your child coming under these conditions, you have a choice to let your child come. If you do not feel comfortable, then your child can do this.
But the problem I'm running to is that down the hall, Mr. McGee wears a mask.
right.
So
We
why
also have
Coach
teachers that have
Stevens,
medical
why
conditions.
Coach Stevens teaching the
Well,
same,
that, go ahead.
refuses, don't wanna wear masks? It's nothing medically,
Medical reason, he
there's
just doesn't
nothing
wanna wear
medically
it.
wrong with Coach Stevens.
Right.
You know, how-
So I want my child now to go to Mr. McGee's class.
Just like we're not in the testing business, are we gonna be in the, get your doctor business to see if you can wear a mask or not wear a mask?
Mr. Hobson, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well,
Required.
here's what I would, I think a couple of issues. One, coach, is that I think we're gonna strongly encourage, I did check around, I checked with 4 or 5 of my school board attorney friends in their districts. So far, I'm not aware of any that are requiring, but they're strongly encouraging. In fact, one of them, I just mentioned a while ago, their firm represents 24 districts around the state. And, according to, in that, he says he's not aware of any of them that they're requiring it for bus ride. It's required for bus rides. I think that's what most districts are doing. Transportation requirement, it's strongly encouraging for the district, because you do have some teachers and some people that have, inability to,
Right.
whether asthmatic condition or
Right.
whatever it is, they
Right.
can't do it. If you mandate it, they can't do their job.
Right. Understand.
And so but I think it goes back to what Mr. Pratt said too. At that point, you got the parents have the option to just say, look, I don't want my child in that class. I'll be at home. We'll do it online if they feel that way. But that's my, I've been trying to read, I've been talking to a lot of my school board attorney friends around the state that sense what they're doing, and I think that's pretty much unanimous on that opinion. But
And
you do have the authority, but so far I've not heard of a district that's mandating it for the classroom.
I mean, I guess, Coach, that we're providing face shields for teachers.
Right.
And so,
And
I'll tell you,
masks,
this
and
fogs
gloves.
my glasses up all the time. And it's a hassle that I wear it, I don't ever not have it on. But if, you know, if you're not comfortable with a mask, a teacher can wear the face shield. And it's a lot easier to wear and maneuver, you know, you can see and all of that. So that is, you know, that will be an option for teachers that do not choose. And I would assume that students can purchase face shields from somewhere and wear them if they wanted to.
But aren't our
But we are all you know, the Stephen Covey 7 Habits schools. And so in that, is there not a habit that says respect or something, right? And so as the mask is and should be a teaching tool in our 7 habits of saying this is a way to respect your fellow human being and wear a mask. And that can then become a teaching tool for kids from pre-K all the way through, so.
But I would imagine that strict guidelines have been given to our teachers about social distancing.
Yes, and all of them will be trained.
Yeah, where they're not gonna be up in anybody's face anyway, with or without a mask. But, I mean, I would assume that no one wants to give it as much as no one wants to get it, right? And on that, I mean, one more thing.
Mhm.
A teacher comes in with a fever. They go to the quarantine room?
They don't come in. Now, they can only get in, under the circumstance, if you approve this, and you'll see this under, there's that's all about employees right there. That's in the plan. And that has a caveat, and I'll read it. It says employees who arrive with 100.4 fever or other COVID-related symptoms will not be allowed to report to work until they are 100.3 or below and symptom-free, or they have a negative COVID-19 test.
Okay, so go back to the same child that's hot from the school bus ride, and you have a teacher that's hoofing it across the parking lot to get into class, and she gets dinged with 100.4.
10 minutes later, she can get dinged without one.
Okay, so she can go back to, just chill out somewhere and go check it
But she
again.
not coming to the building,
Right.
or he's not coming.
Right.
Okay, I just want to get that clarity.
Yep.
Good.
Yep, there's an added responsibility for people that can't transport themselves, and in our situation, you got kids that ride the bus, and we had to ensure additionally that those protocols were in place, so.
All right, I'm off the cover.
That's our, that's what we're suggesting anyhow. All right? Students, transitions between classrooms, the school plans will try to limit the number of those. Some of them, in some cases, are doing one-ways. They're, moving only to the left, but those are going to be logistically different at each building because each building's different. So, check those. Scheduling, one of the things that MDE did do, and hats off to them for this, is they didn't reduce, and I think a lot of people misinterpreted what they said they did. The 4-hour day is not a 4-hour day, it's 4 hours worth of instruction. And so the way that it used to be is it had to be 5.5, now it's 4. So in addition to the extra hour and a half, we're having transitional times where they can go in between classes to extend that time. In addition, we got additional screening time in the morning.
From your survey, we're gonna have half the number of students in the building.
Correct. And that varies based on building, quite frankly. I mean, some of our buildings are 75% are doing virtual online. Some of them are 50-50, some are 40-60, but district-wide, that's correct, about half. Classroom teachers will educate students on best practices. Hand washing, this is something that's going to be added to the regular responsibility of the curriculum. We're going to have signage all over the place. We're going to be educating folks. They need to understand how to protect themselves. And I'm certain they're going to get sick of it, but it's something that we're doing. In addition to that, we've got those videos that are being created by our own health staff. Some of those are going to be relegated to little kid training. Some of those are going to be big kid training. Some of those are going to be adult training. So we're going to make sure that everybody knows what their responsibilities are and how to reduce their risk.
Mr. Superintendent?
Sure.
On the hand washing,
Yes, sir.
it is recommended by the CDC that every 15 minutes, which I know is hard to do in a classroom, I get that. But they say if you were to hand wash, stop and do your hands every 15 minutes, that would help the process. Now, I know the teacher doesn't want to stop because he or she
I'm
is.
Well,
drinking.
you've got,
I'm drinking this stuff down here. I'm
Yeah,
just
so
telling you.
it's a 15-minute
I'm bathing
interval
in
is what they
it.
get.
All right. There will not be a common area for students to congregate. Schools will coordinate school arrival by bus transportation, car rider, classroom teachers, and then the individual plans will have that. So the big everybody come in and sit down until we've mentioned that there's not going to be early dropouts. I hope there isn't any dropouts.
So if you show
Early
up at high
drop-offs.
school, You'll go to your first period.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
If you show up at high school, you'll go to your first period.
After you scan, you'll go to your first period class
Not
or
in the
breakfast,
hallway.
or grab your whatever mechanism. If it's grab a bag lunch and head to breakfast, or sit down and they bring it. I mean, that's going to be in the individual plans is the transition to access to breakfast. But so transition to remote learning, because the rapid changing COVID-19, and this is kind of your question a little bit earlier, it is possible the district would, again, transition all students to distant learning. The district will continue to work closely with the Mississippi Department of Health, Emergency Management, and health organizations. I put that in there just so you know we're ready. If tomorrow we get the indication that we are required to provide full distance learning, we are capable of doing all or none. We can have 100% of my staff reporting to all schools and 100% of our kids doing virtual instruction, or the transverse of that. We're ready anywhere the pendulum hits us as a district. If the district transitions to the district learning, all students will be required to participate in distance learning via the grade results and the other previously stated access, which would be your Odyssey-ware, iReady, Google platform. So that's if we have to transition all. Grades, no changes are anticipated for the district's grading policy. We reviewed all those. We had our commission reviewed it several times. Individual school principals did, and we didn't see any need because, in essence, it's mastery of evidence-based standards. It's all about standards. It's all about the evidence of the standards. So all the redos, all the same procedures that are in place that you currently have will be in place for the distance learning or in face. Guidance for students participating with the Chromebooks. It says that students who participate in distance learning will be issued a Chromebook, and the annual license fees for the Chromebooks, which this is the same as it's always been, is $20 per student annual fee, $40 per family maximum annual fee. So if you have multiple kids, we limit that to $40. That's tied to the previous requirements y'all have had in place for as long as we've had Chromebooks. So that's not a change. We just wanted to put it in here because one of the things we are doing is giving access to students junior high and below to be able to take those home. That'll be the first year that we've done that outside of high school.
Where are they currently with, if you're an elementary school student that was here last year, do you currently have your Chromebook? Or did you get
Some do, some don't.
Okay.
Because not everybody required for summer. A lot of parents said, I've got my own device, I don't want a Chromebook. So, but if you are participating, there's a procedure that you'll come in and grab it and check it out. But those, we did allow it because we had summer learning took place. Right. So some of the kids had the Chromebooks and they were taking classes all summer long. And so yes and no. David, would you hand me a water, please?
And they have had,
Thank you.
where the parents came in and picked up over the summer. Last hour, the summer, so that's been done.
And again, that last bullet, make sure you check with your individual schools based on those. Same thing applies with in person. You know, we're a Google reference district, and it was very evident to me when both of my kids, Riggs, the first day we went online, he was progressing through his classes and his links on the Chromebook, and so was my older one. Chromebook care and repair, click here for information on how to clean and care. It's got a video that's embedded there. Of course, all the click here's on this piece of paper are actual links in the plans. And then it has all the access to the information for our Chromebook repairs as needed.
If a parent currently, I just want to stress this, coming from the IT world, if you currently have a device and you have an issue with it right now, there's something wrong with it right now, they need to get that fixed now versus waiting for the first day of school. Correct.
I can't answer that question. I know that you can click this link and it will tell you what to do.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I'm just asking parents that if you're having trouble with your device now, let's not wait till the first.
Oh, sure.
First day of school to get it fixed.
Sooner we know, the sooner we can get it fixed, correct?
Exactly.
Yes.
The first day of school is we take some of these out of the box or that have been stored, that don't work, we're gonna have a problem with them, the technology is that way. Do your diligence and help us help you.
And one of the things that you approved, and I think Brian asked early on, a lot of districts are trying this for the first time. You got a lot of districts that are just now buying their Chromebooks, just now going on Google platforms, just now iPads or whatever their solution is, and they're going to be hit with a problem because there's a market saturation of need. So we do know that the approval that you just gave for us to move forward with our new devices, those are the cycle out devices. So we currently have enough devices for every kid in the district today. And part of that is gonna be, as these new ones are coming in, instead of repairing, there may be the recycle, there may be getting a new, so, and you know how that works too, because I think 10 minutes after you buy something, it's obsolete, right? I would love to give you more information. I read briefly before I walked into this room that the Mississippi High School Athletics Association, I had that they were meeting and there would be more information coming. They did release that it's going to be, basically they're pushing back all fall activities 2 weeks. I'll give y'all a more detailed version of that at the next board meeting because I didn't know literally until right before I walked in here, I was reading it, so.
Got one more question for you, finish that.
Oh, I'm done with that.
On our Hines, our kids at early college. Now, Hines is making it mandatory for, the kids can't do virtual. Now, this is for, I'm just trying to see, does that affect our kids that are in the program?
Yes.
In that?
And I was thinking, say Sally can feedback on that very strongly because she's got a kid there.
So,
And they're also, Heinz is requiring 100% mask wear.
okay.
I will give a huge shout out to Miss Burris because she's been inundated with questions on
Yeah.
the River City College Facebook page about,
Yep.
you know, I don't want to send my kid to school, so what do I do? And
Right.
her comment was, you're an I never can remember that.
RCC.
RCC, River, whatever, anyway, you're that kid. And so, you will be able to do online high school classes, not college classes.
Okay,
So, you will not graduate with an associate's degree.
okay.
You will just get a high school diploma.
And a bunch of
And-
college credits. at
And
the
some
point we
college
have-
credits if you've got some buildup, but if
Right.
you're a junior coming in, this is
Right.
really your first. You've
Right.
only got, like, I think Michael's got 4 or 5 college credits.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
So, you know, you will not graduate with an associate's degree.
right.
But
That's if you decide to stay home.
That's
if
correct.
you choose not to send your child to Hines, then you will have to do online learning through, you know, grade results through your homeschool, Warren Central, or
Vicksburg.
Vicksburg.
And when we agreed, and that's part of the memorandum, that whatever a regular college student is required to do, that's what our RCEC, so whatever Hines decides is the solution for a college class, that governs us. And so you described it very cleanly.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Next group of this, and we did not field them all, I promise you, but we have a frequently asked question little group here next. We felt this was important because, again, a lot of people are like, well, you know, I'm just going to homeschool my kid. That's fine. But understand, there's a difference in terminology in-person instruction, distance learning, and homeschooling. And I wanted to clarify that just so that everybody understood.
The public does not understand.
In-person means you come into our campus under all of what I just got finished describing. And you are going to sit down in the classroom. A distance learning through grade results means you're going to, as we just described, I'm going to hand you a computer and you have an online curriculum with all the resources that we described for online services. The only way to be a homeschool student is if you are currently enrolled in this district, you will have to withdraw your child from this district, and you are required to submit what your homeschool plan is to the Mississippi Department of Education. The homeschool communities that we have that are currently in our community, they have curriculums that are out there, and they have to fall under the line of any other homeschool kid. So, you know, saying, hey, we're just going to take a semester off and go to Disney World, or we're going to go to the mountains, just understand that there are compulsory school-age law requirements that are still in place. Those come with stiff penalties and fines and jail time if you do not adhere to those. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that homeschooling has nothing to do with the Vicksburg Warren School District. Now, we do have some of our homeschooling students that are making a choice to participate as a full enrolled student in our distance learning during this time. So,
They're technically.
but they're our kids,
They're our
right?
students.
That's correct.
So really, Mr. Superintendent, the bottom line is, The first two are
Us.
enrolled in our district, the last one is not.
That is correct.
Period.
That is correct.
Now, what happens a month in? Johnny, who was here last year, was in fourth grade, you know, Johnny just doesn't show up.
There's truancy laws that take
Do we
place.
do that, or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're reporting.
5 days absent, you get reported to the truancy officer.
The students that never show up, don't show up at all.
Abs-
We'll be reporting them.
Yep. And then after a certain period of time, they're removed from our roster due to the fact that they're no-shows or non-reportings. But that child is still out there somewhere in somebody's
Where
system
I'm concerned.
against MDE.
Let me go there. Where I'm concerned is the challenges we've had in the past with graduation rate at high school, when you don't enroll, but you went to a private school and you didn't properly enroll or paperwork wasn't done properly, and we lose track of you. And you count as a dropout to us, so that's not gonna be a problem or.
No, those days don't exist anymore. Yeah, there was a time where that was a problem, but we've
Yeah, I know.
rectified that problem
I saw our
by
graduation rate last year, I think.
multiple measures. Oh, yeah, it's well in the high 80-fold, so I can't wait for, and I sure, and those numbers will, by the way, however, accountability rolls, if that comes out, they will be in our numbers this upcoming year, so. But we don't know what that looks like yet either. So as a clarifying, I wanted to put that out there just because I wanted the public to understand the difference in those. All right, will there be a school closure for the 2020-2021 school year? Short answer, we do not expect a school closure for any reason at this point. However, there are a myriad of things that could occur that could make that happen. So we don't have any anticipated days outside the regular calendar that you've approved that we feel we're going to operate. Now, CDC, governor, laws, all those things still apply. MDE, somebody comes in and says, we're limiting days to 160, which last year they cut short the amount of days that you had to operate. And they are at 180 this year. So that's still where we are. 180 days. They did reduce the amount of instructional time within that. And know that we do have built-in days that if we do have to adjust anything, we can take, to squish that calendar around as y'all need to redistribute those. But no, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't answer this question definitively, but it is our plan if they shut us down for in-school operations that we will deliver that through grade results and the other virtual school system opportunities that we have. So do employees have to wear masks? This was Coach's question. Briggs has already addressed that in a good description there. But we will provide all of our employees with 5-cloth masks in addition to face shields. Gloves will be available, and of course a ton of opportunities to sanitize stuff. And we've described to you what our cleaning processes are. And all staff, all teachers are strongly encouraged to wear the face covering mask when possible, specifically if they're not able to social distance. How will instruction be provided for students with extended absentee due to the positive COVID-19 test or mandatory quarantine? Students are receiving in-person instruction and have to be away from the classroom for extended periods of time, will transition to distance learning until they're able to return back to in-school. Will schools have open houses? Unfortunately, no. I do know that there are several principals that have reached out to try to begin to have a virtual school tour and opportunities that they can put those out for teachers to or their parents to look at and watch and see what a day may look like. But a traditional everybody comes in, we will not have that.
What you just said is the way to go. If one school is doing it, then we all need to do it. Because then you get a call, well, how come this school, my friend's school just did it? So let's be uniform on that, and all work up some type of welcome and show the building of what's going on.
Chad, it might be kind of fun if we got, GoPros or something like that, you put on a kid, because we've got children that are the leaders in their schools with the Leader MA, and, they wear it all day so that, and then put it on you know, short snips on Facebook and go, this is a day in the life of a fifth grader at Dana Road, or a day in the life of a junior at River City College, or whatever, and that would be kind of, you know, kind of a fun thing to do.
We got some talented kids. too.
We do, we got lots of people do all that kind of stuff.
Will visitors be allowed on campus? And again, I know a lot of these are tough answers that we would not under normal circumstances be given, because you know as well as I do, there's probably nobody else that wants to show off what's going on in our district than I do. But there will be no visitors. So until we're relinquished or relieved of the restrictions in this pandemic, we will not be received. We will no longer have study visits like we have in the past. I mean, we've bumped around between 4,000 and 5,000 people, you know, that have come to see what's going on in Vicksburg. And there's a lot of excitement around those. But again, we're looking at ways to highlight in a virtual way in those opportunities, and to have some, you know, hangout conversations with people that are interested in what we're doing. But there will be no visitors. And if they are required under any circumstance that we have to have a visitor, they will need to wear a mask and or other face covering, and will be required to properly wear it for the duration of their visit. Talk to Briggs about that prior to, because ultimately we would not have anyone who's a non-employee or a non-student in our buildings at all, but under the circumstances where we would have to, we would want them to wear a mask. Because of the strong desire, parent and community engagement will be collaborating to engage our community and family partners in new and innovative ways. Will students participate in assemblies or other gatherings at school? No. In order to comply with the social distancing guidelines, and until those are different, we will not be having assemblies or special programs, and we'll be utilizing technological tools and technology to maximize those communication opportunities for not just our parents at home, but also within the building with our students. Will I be notified if a classmate of my child has tested positive for COVID-19? Uniquely, school districts are under two protective codes. One, not only do we have we have FERPA, but HIPAA. So we have employee protection, we have individual student protection, but what we have gotten clarification from not only legal but medical in Mississippi Department of Health, it is our responsibility to report it to them, and it's their responsibility to notify the public. So when staff and students, student and staff information must remain confidential as required by law. In the event that a student or employee tests positive, it will promptly be reported to the Mississippi Department of Health.
I'm a parent, my child tests positive for COVID, am I required to notify? I mean, they test positive, so it goes to the Department of Health, but I'm not required to tell a teacher, a student,
Are
anybody.
they gonna ask
Am I?
where Johnny went, or what Johnny's doing?
Who is they?
The Department of Health.
I don't know what they're gonna do.
You're a parent.
I'm a parent, my kid tests positive, am I required, I just am gonna distant learn my kid. Am I required at any point in there to notify Vicksburg Warren School District, my child tested positive?
That your child's not gonna be coming back into school unless they're not hot or they're not exhibiting COVID.
I think the answer is no.
Right, I don't have to call and say, my kid did test positive.
If your child got tested outside, let's say, I mean, you think he was playing on the playground before school started, and just never wanted to show up, or was home for a break,
Right,
there's no requirement in
Okay.
law that you would have to
I
report
mean,
that, but they can't.
Yeah, if we're made aware of it,
Right.
we will.
Yeah.
right.
Sally, you're gonna have the opposite parent though, that's gonna go get their kid from school, and the first thing they're gonna do is, in the parking lot, put it on Facebook. Well, I had to pick him up today with 104 fever, and cry wolf. And then, so, I mean, parents have to consider all these options when they're seeing all this news that we have every single day, that, you know, wait for the facts. I don't know how else you're gonna tell them to do it.
Right.
Yep, so our protocol is we notify the Mississippi Department of Health promptly. As soon as we are made aware.
But if you're never made aware, you can't know that.
I can't know what I don't know. That's true. Will students opting for in-person instruction take their Chromebooks home daily? Again, look at the individual plans for that, and those processes are located there. Will elementary and middle school students opt out for in-person instruction be required to wear uniforms? We currently have a policy, and that policy is still in place. Yes, students in the grades pre-K 8 are attending school for in-person instruction will follow the district's uniform guidelines in the student handbook, and then high school students also have to follow the dress code as outlined in the handbook. Child nutrition, this was a big one, and we really wanted to do what we had done in summer feeding, but we're not allowed to. What we're going to do is we're going to offer free breakfast and lunch meals. Those will be served at school, and then the individual school plans will dictate the logistics of that delivery. And in addition to that, as long as 25% of our students in the district are participating in district learning, meals will be delivered daily via bus routes to the Vicksburg Warren School District students at home.
Wow.
So we were able to pull that off. I know y'all wanted to do that, and we didn't want to make that a public comment until we were certain that we could do that. But there is a threshold of the 25%. If we drop down below 25% participation in virtual, then we'll have to go to school pickup at that point. So, and then there is no cost to participate in that. However, just like you were stating that if you're going to be a bus rider, you need to let us know you're going to be a bus rider so that we can provide that. Same thing's going to be with the food, and there's a form, and that's forthcoming so that you can sign up for that and get that delivery at home. So now I will say, if you're the kid that's going to bump in and out, that may not be anything we can do, but if you are definitely going to be at home, you can sign up for those, and we can have those delivery. We were able to, because of the way that the National School Lunch rolls out, we were to be able to provide that for everybody during the summer. But this provision is only for the Vicksburg Warren School District students. Now, if you are a student and had been receiving services from some other avenue, and you want to participate in Vicksburg Warren School District's virtual school, you can enroll your child at your local zone school, and all these options that were covered today will be an opportunity for you as your children learn at home.
I have questions.
Sure.
Okay. Water fountains.
We will
They're
not be
closed.
operating water fountains.
So, are we gonna supply bottled water, or will children be required to bring their own bottled water to school?
We,
Both.
That's correct.
Some of the schools will ask you to bring, and some will provide.
you can bring, and we will recommend, ultimately, especially like when we were doing through the CDC requirements for football, because we did get a kind of a preview there. They don't recommend any place to go get any kind of water that's there. Ours are not currently touchless, but we're looking in what that may look like, and I don't have an answer for that. And at this point, some of our locations do have touchless, and in those locations, kids will be able to refill their own bottle. We are going to have, in case of, just like any other access to water that a kid would have to have for emergency sake or requirements, we'll be providing water, bottled water for that. So.
All right, playgrounds, opened or closed?
Social distancing is going to be required in all activities.
So are we gonna have equipment available for children to play on, or are we gonna rake the equipment off and make it just field day?
That's a good question that I can't answer.
Okay,
Some of the schools in here said that what they're gonna do is what you just said.
rake the equipment off
They're just
and
gonna
do
have,
field day.
well, no, they're just gonna have field day, just let
Right.
them go out.
So
and
that they can
exercise.
be in a certain area and get the
Right.
outside, yes.
Okay,
Because anything that they touch will have to be cleaned, no matter what it is, in any shape, form, or fashion.
right, okay. Library,
Well,
are we gonna have library? Are we gonna be able to check out books?
Yes and no. The way that we can do that is we can have carts that distribute, limited amounts of books, right, but open spaces where large quantities of people go into that area is not gonna be the way we do that. But we still intend to have AR, and we, do not, at this point, have a virtual library, but we are looking at, some ways for that
So
to
if you
occur.
if you let small number of children go to the library.
You could do that.
Socially distanced, you could still.
Just like in a
And-
regular
And
classroom.
teachers, I know that, teachers have their own libraries in their rooms. How are they supposed to monitor libraries in their own rooms?
Well, technically, kids are supposed to touch their own stuff only. And we do, with the Google Classrooms, have the opportunity to download content, and you can have access to some of that. But down to the minutia of every decision, we're gonna just have to,
Okay. All right, here's my last question. Professional attire. Scrubs are considered professional attire because Lord knows nurses are professional. So in this day and age of that, you're trying to keep things clean in your house and you're leaving school and you've been around cooties all day long. And are we going to allow teachers to wear scrubs in the classroom?
at this point, we do not have that as professional attire. If this board chooses to include that as professional attire, y'all can make that decision today, or not.
I would like to make that, I
How do
would
we make
really
that
like to
decision?
talk about that, because I think that if I were a teacher, instead of having to wear my personal, my clothes and washing clothes and keeping clothes separate, that it may give an option that is a comfort. And I think that this whole thing of COVID is that we're trying to make decisions that make people comfortable. It's not whether I like it. My butt and scrubs would be frightening. And so it's not that I like it. It's that if it makes you feel better, then I think that should be something we allow.
Go ahead, Coach, and
Well,
I'll.
my question, all on that is that I just heard the superintendent was talking about the attire that we're doing for kindergarten and all our kids. They're gonna be dressed in the attire. the
In a
way
uniform.
Uniform.
Right.
Now, are we gonna, again, like Chris said, we don't have it, it's gonna be mandatory to everybody?
No, I'm not saying mandatory. I'm saying we already allow aides to wear scrubs. We already allow teachers that are in the SPED department to wear scrubs. So I don't see why if we already are allowing it, then why would we not allow it for
That to me
all
says-
teachers if they choose to? I'm not saying they have to wear them. I'm saying it could be a choice, because
Anything-
there's a lot of out there, and if that makes them more comfortable in this job, and we're putting them on the front lines right now, guys, we're doing it. We're making this decision, and if that makes them more comfortable, then why wouldn't we?
Well, Ms. Bullitt, may I just say
Sure.
that, we can't equate the special ed department with regular classes, because that's a little different, okay? So they wear scrubs for a reason, okay? So that's obvious. My question is, and I know where you're going with this, my only question is this. They say it's for the virus, okay? So have they been wearing scrubs all summer? They've been wearing the same clothes, going in the house. But I said that to say this. John Hopson, and I have it right here, says that if you, talks about talks about your clothes. And it says here that the likelihood of contracting the virus from your clothes is considered low. Even your shoes is considered low. So, I'm kind of baffled as all of a sudden, now, like I know, when some of them, I should say, wash their scrubs, they're not gonna press it. Does that look professional? You come in here with wrinkled clothes? I'm just asking.
I think if they.
So are you gonna make that mandatory?
I think if they wear scrubs, they have to be him, because I don't want, any piece of clothing, they have to fit properly. Right, because, those are still, requirements that I don't think change.
Well, I think y'all are putting way too much into this. If we define professional attire is the discretion of the principal of each school and leave it alone, and just let these principals run their school like they want to run it.
Amen.
And now, there is a Jim Sturgis around here somewhere, and I could consider professional attire as tights and a shirt, t-shirt.
But that's, there
I
again.
said I could consider that is what I'm
I
saying.
agree, I totally agree, because we've had this conversation, but right now, the way everything's run according to our policy, it's the discretion of the principal to keep their staff.
They're not excluded
presented.
right now based on policy, and we're board of policy, if we wanna.
That's all we can do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if our definition of professional, if we want to go into this quagmire and redefine all these things, we're gonna go down this laundry list of what they can wear.
Tomorrow, we're going to outlaw something else.
Well, I'm just saying, our current policy allows discretion of their boss.
All right, Mr. Soup,
Uh,
those are your employees, what do you, require with them?
In the past, what we've done is allowed our principals, I've never gotten a phone call about an unprofessional dressed attire. No one's ever called me, to date, actually, about any of that. So when you talk about those things, the way we've operated as professional attire is an expectation of our district, and what's professional is professional. Now, arguably, a professional circus attire for a clown is not appropriate on a school's campus just because it's considered a professional attire. I would venture to say that what an attorney looks like on a daily basis is much different. We have in the past, when you have gym instructors need to wear shorts or coaches need to have attire, that has been governed by the principal. So to this date, I've never been called about a professional attire issue. So.
Mr. Attorney has one something, and I'll let you say one something. Mr. Pratt, your prior job, they had the professional, you know better than anybody how they had the stipulations of what was professional. So, anyway, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. President. My first question would be, do we have, I know I did a dress policy for one of my other districts years ago, but do we have in our policy right now a requirement for certain dress?
No.
No.
We have two statements. One, the ethics that everyone signs that states that they will be properly,
I get it for you.
it was,
Hold on just a second.
Properly attired?
yeah, well, it wasn't even attired. It was
Professional.
properly ready for work and maintain that through the day. And there's a lot of implications in that in district, but the specific. Yeah, reports and work in a manner that is acceptable for duty, appropriately dressed for duty, and remain fit for duty throughout the entire workday.
That's the code of ethics.
That's the code of ethics standard that everybody, then our policy only states that teachers will wear professional attire, so.
Pretty broad.
Pretty broad. We don't have any this and that and these and those.
I don't recall it ever coming up in this district before, but I know I have addressed it in other districts.
Sure.
You get into
Yeah.
what, some of the details.
Dress
about
length and,
jewelry hair
sure.
length and
Color
all.
hair. and-
Sure.
Yeah, I've dealt with that.
But if we have a principal that's allowing things to go on that we as a board, or you as a superintendent deem interference needs to be made, we have that authority too.
Sure,
So we could always
Certainly.
step in and say, okay, and Jim, to your point, the wrinkled scrubs, I'm all over it. I work at Grand Gulf a lot, and that's all we wear. And so you ought to see some of the stuff I see. But I don't think that's any different than somebody buying a $400 silk shirt and not ironing it. It's kind of the same thing in my eyes, but I think that we just leave this up to the principals and let's get out of it.
I make a motion that we adhere to our current policy, which is to allow the principals to run the building.
If your current policy, you don't need to.
No,
You need a motion. I
The
would
principles
suggest,
of the principle.
and just take no action.
Okay. I think that was all my questions.
All right,
They threw me on it, I see, I'm military, so, you know.
yeah, look, you
I
bet,
had no
no
choice.
offense, everybody else up here, but this is the best dressed man
I
on any given day.
I was military.
Why do you think I sit down here?
I had no
Way
choice.
down here.
Do we have any other business?
I got one more comment, and then I'll let Briggs.
Can I, real quickly, did you want to adopt this?
Yes.
Reopening plan, you want the board to?
I do.
I make a motion, we adopt the, reopening plan for Vicksburg.
But
The moved and proper second that we adopt, approve the guides for the reopening for the school of 2020 through 2021 school year. Are you ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion is approved.
One of the things, and it's bulleted for public comment, it says Current Family Medical Leave Act. We have, and I did this on the last presentation, and you have this that's in there, and it's complete, but it's part of the packet that you just approved. But because it has a separate bullet item, I feel obligated to make sure that I address it. And basically, there are 6 indicators for extended medical leave, and it's under the Mississippi Cares, or not Mississippi Cares, CARES Act that allows for an extension of FMLA. They have further clarified that to say that, in essence, only one of those indicators, and it is if you have failure to find people who can look after your children for childcare purposes, then you get past 10 days. Everybody else in every one of those categories gets the 10 days of required, which is 2-week period only up to 80 hours for 10 days, which is reason 1 through 3, paid 100% of pay, capped at $511 per day, or a total of $5,101 total. Reason 4 through 6 is paid with 2/3 pay, capped at $200 per day, $2,000 in total. Paid sick leave is not a form of FMLA leave and therefore does not count towards the 12 weeks.
So if you
Now,
have sick time built up, you could take it.
now, and there is a lot, this whole packet is gonna go to everybody and every employee, and there are scenarios that are within that. And there are endless amounts of variables that fall in place here, but, if you have a COVID-related sickness, and this goes back to maybe Sally's point with the child, if I'm an employee and I have sick days and I'm out 2 days, our current policy doesn't require you to tell me why you're out, up to a certain period. And then, after a certain period, we have to request a doctor's excuse for those days for you to be paid for them. So if it is unrelated to COVID, it's different than if it's related to COVID. And then what basically, the best way for me to describe this is there are 10 days outside the current days you have. So all your sick days that you currently have are sitting on a shelf over there. If you have a COVID-related sickness, so if you have your need to be tested as an adult, or you miss days because you have symptoms related to COVID, these 10 days are really relegated for that. Outside that 10 days, you have to have personal days to augment those 10 days. So if you have to be checked for COVID 4 or 5 times throughout the school year, those days only cover those 10 days.
Is that the 80 hours?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's whether you're contracted or non-contracted. So that's in here in fine detail. And Lenny did a fantastic job of putting together frequent questions that are a part of that and scenarios, so you could see where it is. And then we have a form that you have to fill out that is COVID related. And part of that is if you are symptomatic and you are quarantining for the time frame to which you're seeking treatment or diagnosis, it covers those days, but you got to go to the doctor to give us the documentation that that's the reason. So you don't just have, a myriad of everybody going, oh, I think I have the COVID today. So anyway, that detail's in there. And since it was a bullet item, I want to make sure that I covered that.
Mr. Attorney? Did you have something?
The policies, do we have to vote
Did you
on
have-
those
We didn't have any-
separately?
I think, my questions on this, I just got this today and looked at it, it looked really good, I was very impressed. The only question, I think Dr. McGee answered one of those, and that is the language that says contact the insurance office. I didn't know if we had a technical insurance office here in the district, but he has advised me, Mrs. Knight is, the insurance office. And the only other point was under the, initial 2 weeks, quote unquote, unpaid. I thought that was, I know what the, or at least I think I know what the intent was there. I thought it might be a little confusing for an employee. I would like to talk to Dr. Little about that.
Tell me where you at in the document.
Under the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act.
Okay.
Look at the second bullet point, initial 2 weeks unpaid. And I was a little confused about that because I think the intent of that new provision is
Yeah,
if you
and-
qualified for the childcare issue, I think you get the 2/3 pay at the $200 cap.
That's correct.
So I think that needs to be just, I think you and Dr. Little and myself maybe need to chat about that one. just to
Okay.
Make sure that's not confusing for employees.
Okay.
But I thought overall it was very good. And at quick glance.
And and I'm telling you, it's a boggy bottom when we started walking through, because there's all types of scenarios. If you are out and you think you have COVID and you have it, is different than if you think you had COVID and didn't have it. And if you were self-selecting to go get tested versus required to go, I mean, it's just, it was amazing the amount of variables that played in. But those scenarios are in here. And if anybody has any questions, best thing to do is pick up the phone and call Dr. Little. We have an amazing resource in her. She is also, not only was she an award-winning principal educator, but we got her from, sorry, Jim, Jackson State University, and she was over the teacher induction program. So she not only has the scope of what you do as an employee benefits, but also to get folks certified. I mean, so her PhD is there. Call her. If you have a question about what your situation is, best thing to do is just call her, and she can give you all your options that are available under this. And we understand it's an amazingly different time.
That's why your son went to Mississippi State.
Oh,
I just
Killing
wanted-
me.
I wanted to tell the public, y'all, there's no way for any of the people watching this to know how amazing you are.
Right.
And, just what we get every time we walk in this room is this plethora of data and all of this analytics and everything that goes into these decisions that you do every day. And your staff
they're rock stars.
is supporting all that. So with that in mind, we didn't have an invocation today, and I'm not gonna praise them, don't freak out. But if you're a spiritual person out there, I want you to lift this man up every day.
Please.
And lift up this board every day, and our board president, and all the people that deal with this every day. And I think that's the only way we're gonna get through it. So just pray, pray, pray.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have an item,
Yes, sir.
and Briggs, you may need to chime in on this. We suspended the several policies back several months ago, the grading system, the promotion or retention, and graduation requirements.
That's correct.
Do we need to reinstate those policies for this upcoming year?
Yes, thank you. I think my recommendation is going to be, we're waiting on some policies from NSBA. I don't know that they're going to touch all those issues, but they might. Is there any reason to get those done before our meeting at the end of the month?
I think the end of the month would be fine.
Yeah, y'all gonna have to suspend the timeframe for the sit policy anyway, unless you reinstate they wouldn't have to suspend to reinstate.
They can, I don't know, but they can suspend it.
Yeah, y'all can make a motion to,
Time-
yeah,
at the
yeah,
time
yeah.
being,
Y'all done
the
that,
motion
y'all know
would
it,
be to
yeah.
Suspend the rule for the purpose of considering the right of way, and in those instances, you would need to consider that right of way to implement it before school starts. And as I mentioned to the superintendent, I think probably one or two times over the last week or two, is that, y'all may have to have another meeting before your next meeting, just the way this thing is ago, when everybody's gotta be flexible and all the documents are fluid, as we discussed, so be prepared, things can change like that with all this.
Well, let's hope that we'd be like the special sessions over in Jackson.
Yeah, that's right, just keep
You know,
going.
get-
Just keep going.
Keep getting paid.
That's right, and just keep filling your pocket with all that
I know,
extra
right?
money
I
you
know,
get,
right?
right?
Keeps on giving.
By the way, they don't
Just
get
a
any
joke,
extra
just a
money.
joke. We're not getting any extra.
They don't get any extra money for the extra meeting.
Do we have any other?
No,
No
I make
other?
a motion that we adjourn.
So.
Been moved in proper second. All in favor say aye. Aye opposed. Motion is approved. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Show me the data.
The next turn.
Show me the